Welcome to the I Love Tattooing podcast, hosted by Jack and Clay, two tattoo artists and shop owners with decades of experience working in street shops where walk-ins are always welcome.
All right, let's start out with the background and the traditional relationship that tattooers and tattoo shops have had with each other. Generally speaking, historically, shop owners have treated tattooers as independent contractors and either gave them a 1099 or the artists that worked there just gave the shop a cut, and there was no kind of formal contract or arrangement other than just a handshake and an agreement, which probably doesn't fit the definition of an IRS independent contractor according to my understanding of it. Now, I am not a tax specialist, but I have dealt with this pretty extensively, so I feel knowledgeable enough to have a discussion on it. I think half the reason that the tattoo industry operated that way is because it was fringe enough that it didn't draw attention from the authorities in the tax audit area that businesses are supposed to be subject to.
I think a lot of businesses operated like that, building trades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You just when you got paid for your job, probably in cash or a check, and then you just paid your guys, and nobody needs to involve the government in that. But the government's too big and tattooing's too big now.
Yeah. Well, I think back probably I watched an old movie the other day with my wife, and it was from the 50s. And the characters in the movie were talking about another person, and they said, "Oh yeah, this guy made his money before the income tax." And I was like, man, we're that close to it historically. Like, it didn't used to be a thing, like, I mean, whatever their income tax wasn't the way it's structured now. And I think that the changes that have happened in the past probably 50 to 60 years have been pretty substantial. I think that people originally would have to pay the government a check at the end of the year for the taxes that they owed, and now it's taken out every week, so people don't really notice it as much. I mean, you have 50 or 60 bucks taken out of your paycheck, or 100 or whatever, versus writing a check for a few $1,000s. I mean, that's a totally different situation, and I think the government prefers that it's taken out a little bit at a time. And it's the whole frog in the boiling water scenario. You don't really notice it.
Oh yeah, for sure. If your average citizen paid quarterly like small business owners do, there would be no IRS or income tax.
Yeah, I agree. But here we are. And even though that tattooing has historically maintained that kind of status with shop owners and artists, those lines have become much more blurred with the clarification of the expectations of the IRS. They now have these worksheets that you can fill out that, are you a self-employed independent contractor? Check these boxes to figure it out, and you can see if you fit their definition of it, because that's really what matters, right? It's not our definition, it's not the industry standard, it's not the historical relationship, it's whatever the IRS decides their definition is at this moment. And we're to the point now where the IRS is sending notifications to anybody that spends more than $600 at a time through any kind of electronic payment system. And coincidentally, you have to send a 1099 to any independent contractor that works for you that earns more than $600 in a calendar year. So that $600 number is not just random. I mean, there's a reoccurring pattern with it.
Right.
That's pretty clear. I I don't know why it's $600, and it hasn't changed, right? Like they change the minimum deduction, they change all these things over time, the amount of money you can put in your 401k, but that $600 is pretty fucking low to be a trigger for getting a 1099, in my opinion, considering that everything else changes, right? That's just static for some reason. That makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of arbitrary number. Like why 600? You know, why not 500? Why not 1,000? Like
Yeah,
it's there's definitely a reason for that, and I'm
sure.
sure it's something insidious. Um, so neither one of us have any love for the government or the IRS at all.
No.
And I know that we'll get flack on this because we're discussing this, but it's a reality. And the bottom line is the law is you have to pay your taxes no matter what.
Yeah.
So if you're an independent contractor, you still owe a tax on your income, and that's based off of how much you make.
Yes.
And that is the bottom line. And it's becoming harder and harder and harder to hide whatever money that you make. And most of these people that are crying about paying taxes, well, I cry about paying taxes. Most of these people that are upset about this and the fact that we're discussing this aren't smart enough to hide their money anyway. You know what I mean? They're all over social media with pictures of their new bling and their car and bullshit guns, whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
They're not fucking hiding it, you know? And
Well, honestly, I don't even think that it matters
no,
because the IRS knows how much tattoo artists make. And if
yes,
you don't think they know that, you're fooling yourself. We looked at hiring foreign tattooers to do like whatever the visa is for foreign workers, H-1B visa or whatever. I forget exactly which one it was. And in order to do that, we had to deal with the IRS and agree that we would pay the prevailing wage for a tattooer. And I thought to myself, well, they don't know how much tattooers make. A tattooing is fringe. It's not a standardized thing. And the IRS said that the prevailing wage for tattooers was around $750 at the time. And the prevailing wage, my understanding is it's the average that somebody makes in that industry. I looked at the amount of money that the people that worked for us made at that time, and $750 take home was almost exactly the right number. And I was like freaked out. I said, whoa, they know exactly how much we make. We cannot hide this anymore. We need to be as transparent and cooperative and not do stuff that is going to get us in trouble with these people, because I don't want to deal with that.
right. Nobody wants to deal with that. And the other thing is we're not in the days where it's just a two-man shop.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What as business owners, what our actions do affects the lives of all of the people that work for you.
Exactly.
So, you know, you trying to screw the IRS out of a couple grand could very much adversely affect your staff.
Right.
And you know, I obviously don't want to do that.
No. I have people with families that work for me, and I want to make sure that these people can feed their families and have a place to work, that they don't have to worry about that stuff. And, making a couple of bucks by cheating on my taxes is not going to provide a good, stable work environment for them.
No. Yeah, being dishonest is probably not a good starting point for a business owner. As much as it sucks. I mean, don't get me started on how awful fucking taxes are, but whatever. You got to pay it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, we've established that we don't like it. So
yeah, I'm not going to say that employee is better or 1099 is better, because it really depends on the individual and the business.
Yeah.
A small tattoo company with, an owner, a piercer, and an artist or two. I don't know if that business model, if they could afford the payroll taxes.
Well, I think in a situation like that, they could do something like booth rent, or the artists just pay, you know, a percentage to the shop, and going it's not really operating on the level of, you know, some other businesses where they have perhaps a cash register and a, you know, a point of sale system and credit card processing and all that. So,
Right.
you know, there's different levels that people operate at, and that's going to affect, you know, what is the best choice for them. Back in 2018, I think the IRS changed the minimum standard deduction. It used to be around $6,000 a year, and they bumped it up to 12,000. That means that you would have to spend $12,000 or more on expenses for your business if you're an independent contractor before you could deduct those expenses. So that's effectively $1,000 a month in personal expenses, not personal, business expenses for your small business. And somebody that's operating as a tattoo artist, $1,000 a month is a hell of a lot of supplies.
Yeah.
So there might be a way to do it. I am not a tax professional. There might be a way to claim all kinds of things and get it up to 12,000 per year. But once they did that, the option for becoming an employee became a lot better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and there's other advantages. As an independent contractor, you're paying a self-employment tax.
Well, you're
Um,
supposed to be paying a self-employment tax.
okay.
So
So
I think for the purpose of this conversation, when we say things like that, we need to say, you know, this is what's expected of you. This is what you're supposed to do. Whether
right,
people do it or not, that's their business. You know,
right. So
that's, you know,
you're supposed to be paying self-employment tax.
right.
Um, and that's an additional tax that you wouldn't pay if you were an employee.
Yes.
And your tax burden in general is a little less because as an employee, the employer is paying payroll taxes. So he's taking up some of that burden. So for a lot of people, I'm not a tax professional or anything. I can't give tax advice, but for a lot of people, an employee is being an employee is easier. Also, if you're irresponsible, being an employee is the way to go
Yes.
because I see a lot of tattooers that, I mean, they're not saving their money to not to pay their taxes, you know?
Yeah.
So it's been this cycle where tax season, which is the busiest time for tattooers in most markets,
Right.
is when they make a whole bunch of money, and then that all goes to pay the IRS for their tax bill for the previous year. So
Yeah.
they're counting on a good tax season
Right.
for the and the last few years that's shit's been weird with tax season. And I saw a thing from the IRS just put out now that um, they have a massive backlog of tax returns that they still haven't dealt with yet. So your tax return for this year is going to be late,
Yeah.
even though they just hired 80,000 new people. Um,
Well, are those 85,000 or whatever the number is, are those people processors? Are they enforcement agents? Are they auditors? Or is it a combination of that? You know, they're not probably hiring people to help process the backlog of taxes they have in order
no,
to make sure that citizens get the money that they're supposed to be getting back from their tax returns. They're probably hiring people, if I had to guess, to be the enforcement arm to collect more money for them, because
absolutely.
that's how those agencies work.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the reasons that our company converted to offering the option for artists to become employees is because of the whole COVID thing. Independent contractors, even though they were supposed to get unemployment, didn't. Or if they did, it was months and months down the road. Half of my staff, by the time they got the unemployment, we were already back open and been open for months.
Yeah.
Um,
We also operate in Florida, and Florida, if you remember, compared to a lot of other states, was absolutely atrocious when it came to distributing benefits. Now, the state government collected tons and tons of money from the federal government, but they did not want to pass it out. Now, I don't know what they did with it. I don't know if there was some conditions attached to it that DeSantis didn't want to have to abide by, but they were not eagerly passing that money out, and that created a lot of problems. So there's a multiple reasons I think why that happened, but I
right.
do know that every person that was an employee did get money pretty easily.
Yeah. One of the big problems was the website. All government websites are poorly designed. The website that you would go on to get your unemployment was seeing a year's worth of traffic every day. So
Yeah.
what that website would normally get in a year, I don't know, 100,000 applicants or whatever. I'm sure it's more than that, but whatever. They were getting that every day, and it
Right.
was crashing the website. It was
Right.
just, it was a shit show. And the other shit show was when a lot of our staff went to go get unemployment, it would deny them because even though they were getting a 1099, I know several artists that weren't filing taxes.
Yep. Yep.
So I had a bunch of people being like, "Hey, can I get my 1099s?" A lot of former employees hitting me up.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like these people hadn't filed taxes in 5 or 6 years. So for those people, employee is the best bet because then they don't have to worry about it. It comes out of the check. They get a tax refund at the end of the year. And let me tell you, the IRS is going to get you. They are going to catch up with you.
Yes.
And not only are you going to owe all the money you should have paid, but you're going to owe a bunch of extra money.
Yeah. They're going to fine you and penalize you and charge you interest and everything they can to economically enslave you, because that's what they're doing.
And they're going to garnish your paycheck and everything. I knew an artist. I don't know how true this is, but he hadn't filed taxes for 10 years. The IRS came after him and they hammered him hard.
Yeah.
And between the wage garnishment from the IRS and his child support, no matter how much money he did that week in tattoos, his check was $25.
Jesus Christ. See, that creates a separate issue altogether. He is basically incentivized to work under the table at that point.
That's what he did.
Yeah. I mean, what else can he do?
Sure.
He can't even feed himself,
Right.
I mean, not that I'm justifying the guy's behavior. I'm just saying that the process that they used to retrieve whatever money they said this guy owed them created a situation where he's going to deliberately and intentionally not pay them anymore.
Right. Right.
Crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the biggest things I see, okay, backstory here. We're kind of having this discussion because there's an Instagram page called Tattoo Jobs, and I highly recommend. It's awesome. It helps artists and shop owners connect, but every once in a while they have these little surveys. They just kind of ask questions, and it's always really interesting. And it's something just like, tattooers, do you prefer commission or booth rent? And then, there's the comment section, of course, is amazing. And just like anything on the internet, it's entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
Because there's some special people out there that love the comment section and love to show off their ignorance. But this recent one, they asked about, hey, it seems to be the tattoo industry is moving towards W-2. And I was actually surprised the number of shops that are doing that. Russ Abbott is doing like we're doing. He's doing W-2, offering a 401k, profit sharing. I thought we were the only tattoo company that does a 401k. And honestly, it's not surprising that Russ Abbott is doing that because he's always been an innovator. You know what I mean? And that's awesome. That dude loves tattooing.
He does.
And I respect that. A lot of people in the comments section will they basically equate employee with slavery. I don't think they understand that as an independent contractor, you really don't have a lot of rights, but as an employee, you have a whole lot of rights. An independent contractor, your boss can walk into the shop one day and be like, I don't like the color of your shirt. You're fucking fired. And that's it. You're done.
Yep. And there's no recourse.
No. If you're an employee, depending on what state you're in, each state's labor laws are different. But if you're an employee, he can't do that in some states. In other states, they can, but you're going to be able to collect unemployment because you were terminated unjustly.
Yeah.
So in some states, and maybe this is a reason for people in certain states not to convert their staff to employee, it's very difficult to fire somebody.
That's true.
Bad for the business owner sometimes. You ever have one of those guys that works for you that's just shitty enough you can't stand to be around him, but not shitty enough to justify firing him? You're like stuck with these people, you know?
Yeah. I do know what you're talking about, and without harassing somebody, it can be difficult to get rid of them if they're following the rules and things like that. You know, if they're breaking the rules, you can fire them. But I know what you're saying. Like, somebody's attitude might not be that good, but they still show up on time. They
Right.
still do their job. They're doing just enough to not get fired. And
Yeah.
that can be a frustrating situation. Now, if they're an independent contractor, like you said, you can fire them for any or no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, for sure.
And
No,
with no recourse.
Right.
They
And I'm
have
not saying that's right, because I mean, I've definitely heard some stories of people getting fired for just the wrong reason, and they
Yeah.
didn't deserve it. But so employees have a lot of rights
For sure.
and a lot of recourse, and the state, you know, has your back if you're wronged in the workplace. Independent contractors don't have that.
No.
And one of the arguments I saw people were posting is like, well, as an employee, then you have to stick to a schedule. Well, as an independent contractor, I'm sure you have a schedule too, you know? And every once in a while I'll get somebody be like, well, I'm an independent contractor. You can't tell me that I have to come in at 11. It's like, that's true.
Yep.
However, if you don't come in at 11, I'm going to find an independent contractor that will.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Most people out there probably aren't really independent contractors. They don't actually qualify for that.
Well, yeah, that's something that everybody that works in the tattoo industry should understand, at least enough to, you know, function, so that they don't screw themselves. The IRS has the documents on their website that explain the definition and the you know, the expectations of independent contractors and the difference between contractors and employees. It's a complex thing to understand. Is a lot of misinformation about it, like you said, in the comments section of any post on the internet that's for or against whatever the, you know, the topic is. There's tons of opinions and very little facts that are driving these conversations. I was able to really navigate this stuff because back in 2015 or so, our stores in Wisconsin were audited by the state, and they told us that the way we were functioning, that all the body piercers were employees and they needed to be converted to W-2. And the tattooers, the way we were functioning, were also W-2 employees, but they could be independent contractors if they followed these changes that they wanted, like becoming an LLC or an S corporation or something like that, to kind of separate themselves from the W-2 employees. So we had to convert our piercers, and we were given the option to convert the tattooers. If they got an incorporation, they could remain a 1099 contractor. Otherwise, they would be converted to W-2. And for whatever reason, Wisconsin laws are more, I don't know, progressive, labor friendly. I don't know. But that a lot of the staff there decided to become employees. And we had to solve that problem years ago. Like, hey, how do we do this? Because as a tattoo shop, the insurance for workers' comp was not available to us at that time. We ended up hiring a employment agency, like employment leasing or whatever, who does payroll for small companies and gets a better deal because they have, 10,000 people that work for, 80 different companies or whatever. So it's a cheaper rate for them to get insurance and do, all the things that are required as an employer. So we ended up going that route and using a company to do our payroll and pay those insurance and those things. And it worked.
So when you say insurance, I just want to interject here. You're speaking specifically about workman's comp, no other insurance, right? Not health insurance or any of that.
No. So that's a different thing altogether.
Right.
So workers' comp is required by law. It's effectively a tax, right? Just like unemployment insurance. They call it insurance. It's a tax. Anything that you're required to do by law, no matter what they call it, if it's compulsory, it's a tax, right? So the workers' comp and unemployment both are listed as insurance, but really it's a tax because insurance is a product that you can choose to buy or not choose to buy. Otherwise you're just paying a tax. I mean, it might be a private company, whatever, but that's just the way that functions. And because we were not, I think they said, you guys are untrained medical workers. That was their kind of loophole to not give us insurance as like if we were going to process the payroll, we would have to buy that insurance, but we couldn't because they said that tattooers and piercers were quote unquote untrained medical workers. Now, obviously we have training. Piercers and tattooers are licensed and have to go through bloodborne pathogen courses, and we're trained annually on handling biomedical waste and these things. I mean, we're not completely untrained. It's just that we don't have medical degrees or, this kind of government certification that qualifies us to be professional medical workers, I guess, according to the insurance company.
Right. So workman's comp covers if you're hurt at work, basically.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a huge advantage to being an employee. As an independent contractor, if you're doing something, you accidentally stab your hand with a tattoo needle, you should probably seek medical attention. And in the state of Florida, the bloodborne pathogens course that tattooers take, it recommends that you go immediately to a walk-in clinic or an urgent care, and they may start you on the antiretroviral drugs for AIDS, just in case. And then you get tested for AIDS every 3 months. If you're an independent contractor, that's out of your pocket. If you're an employee, because of workman's comp, that's completely free.
Well, it's a free cost to you.
Right. To you. Right.
Yeah. So there definitely are benefits to being an employee that a lot of people are unaware of, like the workman's comp issue. Another benefit on that subject is that if you wanted to buy a car, a house, something like that, you have a W-2, you have a paycheck stub, you have, you've paid your taxes, you can show your income and things like that. And that makes it a lot easier to, make a big purchase like that. Whereas, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but if you walk into a car dealership with more than, I think, $10,000 cash, it might even be less than that now, they're going to call the IRS and report you for having too much cash, and you're going to have to explain where it came from.
Right.
Now, that's just one example, but if you have a W-2 and you walk in with that, you can go, well, here's where I got it from. Like, okay. And that's it. And they still might call the IRS, but you're going to have a lot easier time explaining where you got that money if you're going to pay for large purchase in cash.
Yeah.
Having a work record too, the W-2 shows that you were employed somewhere. So let's say that you move to a state where they require you to have been employed as a tattooer for X number of years before they'll give you a license there without going through an apprenticeship or school or something like that. And you can show W-2 paycheck stubs or your tax returns that are filed by the company that you worked for, and show that you were working as a tattooer. So that's another benefit that could come in handy if you're traveling or moving around.
I have a friend that tattoos in Oregon, and the only way he was able to get licensed there was he had his tax documents. He could prove he was
Yeah.
had been tattooing for whatever their time requirement is or whatever. If he didn't have that, he would have had to have done an apprenticeship or gone to a tattoo school or
Right.
some
Yeah.
nonsense. Not that an apprenticeship is nonsense, but
No,
it's
I know.
nonsense that the
But you've
government is
already
forcing you. Yeah,
right. Or he's already worked as somebody in that industry for
yeah,
however long, and have to prove it and stuff like that. But yeah,
yeah.
there's definitely some benefits to being an employee, I think.
I've bought a house as an independent contractor tattooer, and I've bought a house as an employee, and I was able to do it as an independent contractor, but lenders don't like non-traditional. They want safe,
Yes.
and independent contractors are not what they consider a safe bet. And I was married, and I don't know if I wasn't married if I would have actually been able to buy that house. But as an employee, not a problem. You're just
Yep.
like every other schlub. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep. Yeah. I don't
Um,
know. I don't know what it is about having the employer take out your taxes from your paycheck that somehow banks or these other lending institutions find that favorable. I don't understand that, but that's definitely a thing. I mean, I guess it shows stability. I have no idea.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess if you're an independent contractor, you're not paying your taxes. Your IRS is gonna come take the things that you own. And you're
Oh,
gonna,
right. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
That makes
I, I
sense.
I don't know how that works. I guess they would force the sale of your house and take your equity after the note's paid off. I don't know. I don't.
Well,
I,
it depends on the state. Some states that can happen. Florida is not one of those states. If you go bankrupt or get sued or whatever, your primary residence cannot be taken away from you. So that's why a lot of wealthy people have homes in Florida for that very reason.
yeah. Um, I mentioned earlier Russ Abbott and 401k, and that we
Uh-huh.
we offer that, and the retirement plan is huge advantage to being an employee. Obviously, you can have a retirement plan as an independent contractor if you're responsible enough. You can contribute. You can set up your own retirement account. Um, but
Well,
having
I think that tattooers should do that too. I
oh
think
my
that's a
God, yes,
totally separate conversation, but
yeah,
that is something that the traditional retirement plan for tattooers work until you die,
right.
and
And
that's not good.
I've seen it. It's sad,
Yeah, I have to.
and I don't want to do that. I absolutely love tattooing, but I like doing other stuff too, and I do eventually want to retire and not worry about it. And I'm going to be able to do that because I've set up a retirement account. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, for sure.
With the 401k, especially if you're with a company that matches your contribution, the money comes out of your check before you even see it. It's just like your taxes. You don't even miss it.
Yeah,
And the IRS recommends that when you're young in your 20s and you start working, you contribute 15%. If you just contribute 15% to a 401k, you will retire very comfortably.
well, I think more than the IRS recommend that. I think people that are financial planners recommend that.
Right.
I think everybody should consider, if you don't work for a company that has a 401k, it's a good idea to set up an IRA or some other kind of retirement, investment account so that you can plan for the future or a disaster. You
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen, and having access to money like that is always beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge advantage. And I think that I have a lot of tattooers that work for me that have been tattooing over 20 years. And a huge draw for people when I'm talking to people that are interested in working for us is that we have a 401k. Because after when you're 20, retirement, 65 is so far away that you don't even think about that shit.
Yeah.
When you're 45, you're thinking about that shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And that's a big draw. They want that security and to plan for the future. They've got wives and children, and being an employee and having that is huge for them. And I think it's awesome that we can offer that. Like I said, I've seen people have to tattoo till they die, and it's sad.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
so, and I've seen it with like a couple of big name people. You'd be like, dang, man,
Yep.
relying on the charity of others to get by, and yeah, I want everybody to retire and be happy and wealthy if you choose to. Tattoo until you die. That's cool too. If that's your plan, man, more power to you. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you die young, it's probably not a terrible thing, but I want to live and see my grandchildren grow up and things like that. And I could tell the older I get, my eyes don't work as good as they used to, and I start to get a little bit of arthritis and things like that. I can't do what I used to be able to do when I was 25 and 35 years old. So, you know,
Yes, as the
got to
great
make a
Waylon,
plan.
as the great Waylon Jennings said, if I'd have known I was going to make it this far, I'd have taken better care of myself.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think I was gonna make it to 40, and I just turned 50 last year. So uh, here we are.
Glorious. Yeah. We've gone on a lot about the advantages of being an employee. I mean, there are advantages to being an independent contractor for certain people also,
Yeah,
because you can
absolutely.
deduct expenses and things like that,
Well, it depends on the situation too. Like if you work at a
Sure.
shop where they do booth rent, being an independent contractor is the only option that you have, and it's going to be the
Right.
best option for that situation. So, I mean, that's cool. Do it, but learn about it and make sure that you're doing it right, so that you don't get pinched by the IRS and fuck it everything out the rest of the people that work there. I mean,
Right.
the employers or shop owners that are operating this way, they need to make sure they're doing things the right way, so that they don't endanger the people that work for them. We have a responsibility as
Hmm.
as tattooers and shop owners to make sure that we do things the right way for our clients and our staff. So that needs to be taken
Absolutely.
seriously.
So when doing some research for this topic, I saw there's a lot of people that are tattooers or former tattooers or whatever that are offering advice, a lot of actually
Yep.
good advice and some not so good advice out there. That podcasts and YouTube channels and stuff like that about financial health for tattooers and other independent contractors. And that's another sign of how big our industry is becoming. I saw one and I thought this was really interesting, but it makes sense. I don't know how true it is that if you're in a booth rental situation, you should be 1099ing the person you're renting the booth from.
Yes. If you're giving them more than $600 a year for booth rent, which I can't imagine a booth rental situation where it's less than $600 in a calendar year, then you should 1099 the person that you're renting the booth from.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, because what you're paying in rent is a deduction, right?
Yes, it is for sure. As an
So
independent contractor, yes.
yes, as an independent contractor. So in a situation like that, I mean, independent contractors is totally the way to go. Plus, booth rental situations are a little different than your standard cut. Anybody that I've known that's been in a booth rental situation, they make their own hours, they provide
Yep.
all their supplies. It's totally a different scenario. Um, but yeah, it totally makes sense that if you're in a booth rental situation, especially if you've got some kind of written agreement, you should be tattooing that shop owner because you're renting and and you're supposed to 1099 your landlord.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
The size of the tattoo industry is also, that's definitely something that the IRS is aware of. Okay. Forbes magazine has a article about the amount of money generated in the tattoo industry. And I think I wrote it down here. Let's see. It's we're about $1.5 billion a year, and they expect it to grow to 3.5 billion in the next 10 years. The
And
IRS is
that's globally, right?
Yes, globally. Yes, globally. The IRS is aware, and the United States is probably accounts for over half of that, if I had to guess. Europe and the United States are a vast majority of it, and then after that would be Asia and South America. Those are the that's where the population of people that are getting tattoos is.
Yeah.
But there's other factors that are relative to the size of the amount of money and things like that tattooing generates, and that is outsiders looking into our business and trying to figure out how to make a buck.
Yes.
I think Kingpin Tattoo Supply was purchased by Bunker Hill Capital, which is an investment
Yes.
company that bought, and maybe
Tat Soul.
Tat Soul too. Yeah, there was like 2 or 3 companies that they bought.
Mhm.
I heard they tried to buy Eternal Ink,
Mhm.
Tramp from Detroit's
Mhm.
company, I think. So that, I mean, who knows what other companies they've kind of sniffed around to buy. And these are like big money people, you know, they're
Yes.
not, this is not like this is serious money outside of our industry. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it needs to be understood that this is something that's going to happen in some way, shape, or form to the business because of the amount of money that there is in it, you know.
You know what's interesting is Bunker Hill had on their website the list of businesses that they owned.
Uh-huh.
And at one time, Kingpin was on there. And it's no longer on there. And I'm actually looking at their website right now, and I don't see a list of what they own anymore.
Did they take people that were complaining about outsiders kind of, you know, interloping into the tattoo industry?
Well, I think that's part of it. So in a previous episode when we were talking about tattoo schools and apprenticeships and stuff like that, I said that there was a guy that was kind of trying to franchise out a tattoo school, and people were picketing shops and everything like that. Well, there was a big uproar among tattooers about you know, these tattoo schools and how awful they were and stuff like that. And Kingpin posted a post that said that they are really against tattoo schools and how wrong it is, and that if you operate or graduate from a tattoo school, Kingpin will not sell you tattoo supplies. That was an Instagram post that they made.
If you wait a minute, if you operate
a tattoo
or
school
graduate from
a tattoo school, they will not sell to you. You will be blacklisted. And I thought this was really interesting. So I posted from another Instagram account I have, or used to have, that I thought what they were doing was really interesting, considering Kingpin is owned by Bunker Hill Capital, an outside group looking to make money off of tattooing. And Kingpin's little post there was pretty dishonest and very, you know,
it was a bit hypocritical.
Yeah. My post was immediately deleted and my account blocked by Kingpin. And I went back to try and find that post, and it's gone. It was probably deleted shortly thereafter because somebody was like, "Whoa, dude, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. Icon Device, I believe, is owned by an investment company too.
Okay. I didn't know that. That makes sense, though. I mean, I knew there was a couple of companies that were bought up by either Bunker Hill or some similar operator. Icon, if I'm not mistaken, is a Canadian-based company. Is that correct?
They are.
Okay.
A few years ago, all of a sudden, though, they had warehouses in New York. And I believe that's when around that time is when they were bought. I could be completely wrong. This is just some stuff I heard from a guy I know that's really into finance and stuff like that. That Icon was one of the ones that were bought. So, I mean, that's like 3 major supply companies that are owned now from outside the tattoo industry.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's a lot of money being made, and the IRS knows it. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. So one of the comments on the tattoo jobs Instagram post was about how somebody from a company called acquisition.com recently said they would acquire tattoo shops and make them successful. So I mean, this is just completely randomly found on the thread about W-2 versus contractors. And then there's a whole big discussion about what it costs or what dollar amount those kind of acquisition companies are looking for in order to take over a company. One person says 5 million, another person says 3 million. And I think that there's probably multiple tattoo companies that are gross revenue generating $3 to $5 million a year. I mean, you know, there's plenty of operators that have multiple locations and decent sized markets that are clearing that kind of gross revenue. So it's only a matter of time till some outside people buy up tattoo shops in addition to supply shops and really change the direction of tattooing.
Yeah, for sure. So I just looked up acquisition.com
Uh-huh.
since you mentioned it. I had forgot about that post.
Uh-huh.
And so you go to their website, acquisition.com. Do you want to scale your business? We are looking to invest in one great business per month. Will it be yours? And then it asks two questions. I own a business. I want to start a business. And you select one,
Uh-huh.
and then it starts asking questions about your business. And the second question is, where are you based? USA, Canada, or other?
Okay.
So obviously this is an international thing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know anything about this company. Down at the bottom, they have some other links: books, courses, consulting, the firm, which is about our cause, our investment thesis, and the
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. I would be curious to know how did they make tattoo businesses successful? Like,
Well, I think an outfit like that measures success in dollar signs,
of
you know?
course.
Yeah. So, I
So,
mean, profitable, more profitable. I don't know. I mean, there's probably, I'm sure somebody that is not from our industry that has money, right? Like one of
mhm,
these outfits that looks at what we're doing would say, hey, we can make more money if we change this, add this, you know, increase retail sales, you know, change branding. I don't know. I mean, there's people that are super expert in these things that
mhm,
really know how to leverage businesses to make more and more money. And, you know, it's going to happen. I don't know
yeah,
when
mhm,
or to who, but it's going to be a thing.
yeah,
There's already outsiders in our business. Hart and Huntington, that guy is like a motorcycle
mhm, yep,
riding guy. He's not a tattooer. Like I got nothing against the guy. Like he
no,
might be a great businessman, you know. But
mhm,
all these people, they're like, oh, we can't let these outsiders come in. Like you can't stop it.
right.
The only way you're going to be able to stop that is to outcompete them.
Isn't that gatekeeping? And
Yeah, I guess it
that's a
is.
term I've heard a lot
Yeah, yeah,
by people, and I could definitely see the same person that says tattoo apprenticeships are bullshit because it's a form of gatekeeping. They're
yep.
the same ones that are saying we've got to keep these other businesses out of the tattoo industry.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't I think the only consistency you get with people like that is just that they haven't thought through their position very well, you know, or they're just repeating something that somebody else told them.
Right.
Like how many tattooers do you know that instruct their clients to wash their tattoo with dial soap?
Yes. And then
What
go buy
does yeah,
Aqua 4.
yeah, does dial or Aquaphor pay you to say that? Like, why the hell would you say that? You
Yeah.
know? I but that's just another thing that I every time I hear that, I go, "Why do you tell people that?" And they
Yeah.
think about it, and they either say, "I don't know," or they say, "Well, that's what I was told to say."
Yeah. And aftercare is another great example of money from outside the tattoo industry. Um, a lot of aftercare companies are not owned by people in the tattoo industry. They might have been at one time,
Right?
but I know that Tattoo Goo isn't. They were
Yeah.
purchased, and it's some kind of medical supply company or something. And whatever. I mean, I have no problem with that. If you make a good product, You know what I mean? And whether you're a
Absolutely.
tattoo or not, if you make a good product and you're actually trying to do some good and you know, providing a quality aftercare product at a reasonable price, I feel is a noble thing within tattooing. I don't care what your other job used to be or is or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's going to happen. It's happening. It's only going to happen more.
Yep.
And there is two. Well, there's one. I'll just say one that because I know this for sure. Chain of shops in Florida.
Uh-huh.
And they are not owned by tattooers. They are owned by some foreign guys with money
Uh-huh.
that own other businesses too.
Okay.
And they've been around a while, and they're successful enough to keep going to open
Yeah.
more shops.
Yeah.
They haven't opened any more in a while, but they don't give a fuck about tattooing.
No, they don't. Well, they do in the sense that they make money off of
They
it.
care about money, and that's it.
Yep.
And I've heard a lot of crazy things about these fellers from staff and everything like that I've talked to. And I mean, the one guy, I met him and he was talking about his business plan and everything, and he was really proud of what he was doing, and it was basically just shitting on his staff and tattooing. Didn't give a fuck, you know.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
You do. You were there when he was talking about
I remember now.
And fucking crazy. And those guys are out there, and I bet
they've been around for a long time too,
Sure.
man. 15 years at least.
Yes,
probably more.
And this is not an isolated thing. I'll bet in any major market, there used to be a chain in Denver, and that was owned by a professional wrestler.
Nice.
And man, they're not around. I don't know. I heard that dude passed. Maybe that's why they're not around. But they had like 6 stores or something.
Wow.
So these people are looking at tattooing, and owning supply companies and aftercare companies and stuff like that is one thing.
Yeah.
But owning and operating a bunch of shops, to me, that seems worse. And it's probably just I don't know. Maybe that's just silly on my part, but
what do you mean it seems worse? Like, you mean like it's a bigger slight
problem
against tattooing? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like, I mean, we do this because we love it. You know, obviously this is what I do for a living and how I support my family.
Yeah.
But if I didn't love it, I would do something else. You know what I mean? And other people aren't going to come in, and they're not going to take care of this thing of ours. You know what I mean? They're not going to love it the way we do.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
so you want to keep these businesses out of the tattoo industry, then set yourself apart. You know, we have multiple locations and stuff like that. And I'm not saying I'm trying to choke these other guys out, because I don't even know if that's possible.
No,
but
it's not.
You know what I mean? I can at least provide an alternative for
for
customers and for artists. You know, you don't have to go work for that guy. You know, we have a
Well,
lot to offer because, you know, you can be an employee or an independent contractor.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, I've heard stories about some of these, like, screwing people on their taxes.
Oh yeah.
Claiming that they were taking taxes out when they actually, well, they were taking it out, but they weren't giving it to the IRS.
Yeah. No, I've heard of people getting 1099s for like 3 times what they actually made.
Yes.
Like, that's sketchy as shit, man.
I have firsthand experience with that.
Wow.
I knew a shop in Pennsylvania. Anybody that quit, whether you left on good terms or bad terms, the shop owner was going to 1099 you for 100% of what you did tattooing. Not your cut, but
your
everything.
gross revenue. Wow.
Yeah, you were going to get a 1099 for that. You were going to pay some of his taxes.
Yeah. Damn.
And he thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably something that he got away with more than once, because people just don't know what to do about it. They think, oh, well, this is the guy sent me this. Like, there's nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a matter of people just not being educated and not empowering themselves with the knowledge to navigate this stuff. And that's why it's important that people understand it when they're engaged in it and know, what their rights are, what their responsibilities are, and things like that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important, like what you said, that our situation in particular, because that's what we know, is that if people want to be a W-2 employee to work with us, they can, and it's not a problem at all. Or if they want to be an independent contractor, that's a possibility too. They don't have to be one or the other. They can't be both at the same time. But there's
Right.
plenty of people that work for us that started out as independent contractors and converted to employees when they realized the benefits that they could take advantage of. And it
Yeah.
doesn't suit everyone. We still have people, I think both of us in our company have people that are independent contractors that don't want to be W-2 employees, and that's fine too.
Yeah. About 10%.
Yeah.
Is about what I have that are independent contractors. And
Yeah.
one of the guys, he's no longer with the company. He's moved on to his own studio. He was just like, man, he's like, I pay my child support and I want to keep doing it. I don't want them to be able to get into my bank account and get it. And it wasn't that he was trying to get out of paying. It was just that he didn't like the idea of the state or whatever
Sure.
deducting the money out of his bank account. He's like, so I'm
Sure.
going to continue to do this. And it's like, man, that's cool. Do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I get that. I hope
Yeah.
that guy doesn't think that they can't get into his bank account, because believe me, they can.
Right. For sure. For sure. Yeah.
I mean, ask Kanye. They can get in there.
Yeah. Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
He went to jail for not paying his taxes, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. He went to jail for either tax fraud or tax evasion. I don't know. There was some tax related thing. I think the best thing to do is learn the laws that apply to you and your situation, and hire an expert, get an attorney, get a
Yes.
tax planner, get a financial planner, and learn what you can do to offset your tax burden.
Yeah.
It may be, and there's a financial vehicle that you can invest in that's going to be a tax deferred thing. There may be, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can put a certain amount of money each year into a tax deferred health savings account to pay for medical expenses. There's real estate investing that you can do that will allow you to depreciate real estate and diminish your tax burden. There's a lot of things you can do that are legal, and that was something that I found interesting about Trump. Everybody was getting on to him about not paying his fair share in taxes, and he just said, "Hey, I use the system that you guys made, and I try to minimize the amount of money I pay in taxes." He goes, "That doesn't make me a cheat. That makes me smart." He just used the system to his advantage. Like, that's what super wealthy people do. They don't pay the same percentage of their revenue or their income in taxes, because they understand how to do that kind of shit. And there's things that people on our level can do that'll benefit them in that regard too. And you just got to be ready to do it, learn about it, put some effort into it.
Yeah. Warren Buffett bragged about paying less in taxes than his secretary.
Yep.
One of the guys that is an independent contractor that works for us is he has other businesses. So independent contractor works great for him. He's a machine builder.
Okay.
And does pretty well with that. And then he's got some real estate going on and stuff like that. And he has a company that he uses to help him with his taxes.
Yep.
And somebody that he personally knows, has been with for a long time. They understand his situation, and he pays not a lot.
In taxes,
he's not violating any laws. He's using the system.
Yep.
And I've always said that, hiring a tax professional, I would rather give the money to that person than the fucking government.
Absolutely.
So it might not save me any money, but at least it's going to some fucking working man instead of the government.
Yeah, because I mean that the tax attorney or accountant that you're using to reduce your tax burden is not going to, blow up people in another country or, have a coup to install some puppet regime or something like that. I don't want to get too political though. Sorry.
That's true.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if the old lady that does my taxes bombed another country, that'd be kind of cool.
Depends on the country, man.
Well, of course, sure. Yeah.
I mean, Canada, hell yeah, I want to hire her too.
Yeah. Man, what'd the Canadians ever do to you?
They won't let me in their country.
Oh, well, yeah. Man, speaking of places that love to tax the shit out of people, I have a friend that has a tattoo shop in Canada. I would be interested to see how they do their taxes, because I'm sure it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's high there.
I've worked in Europe a few times, and the guy I worked for really went through a lot of hoops to hide his income from the government, because their tax rate was like 40%. And he didn't take credit cards, and cash only, and yeah, because the tax burden is just so oppressive. It was crazy. And I actually think he has left that country and gone to a more tax-friendly country now.
Wow.
Which, the average person doesn't have the money to do that. So learn how to work the system, I guess,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I want to make it clear to anyone listening that we do not advocate breaking any laws at all.
Or bombing countries.
No. We want everyone to pay the correct amount of taxes for their situation, and hopefully that number is as close to zero as possible. So good luck.
Absolutely. I don't want anybody to break the law or get in trouble, because the IRS is evil. If they locked up Blade, they'll come get you.
Yeah, it's true.
They took poor Willie Nelson's shit away from him.
Oh man. That's criminal right there.
Yeah. You can't fuck with the IRS, man. I firmly believe the tax laws are so confusing and so convoluted, so that if they want to get you, they can get you, and you know what I mean? That's all there is to it.
They put, what's his name, Irving Schiff, in prison for showing people how not to pay taxes. He probably was paying his taxes. He just showed other people how to, get away with paying less tax. They put him in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't fuck around.
I'm just reading what determines if you are an independent contractor or an employee on the IRS's website is so vague.
Yeah.
That, I mean, you could be both at the same time, according to this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Not literally, but that's how vague it is.
Well, they have some person that looks at that and says, okay, you checked 7 of the 9 boxes. We're going to go ahead and say that you're an independent contractor. And another person might look at it and say, yeah, 7 and 9 is not enough. You need to get 8 out of 9 in order to get independent contractor. You're an employee. So again, I think that it's rather arbitrary, and it can change depending on who's interpreting it.
Sure. So there are 3 common law rules. This is business must weigh these factors when determining whether a worker is an employee or an independent contractor. Number 1 is behavioral. Does the company control or have the right to control what the worker does and how the worker does his or her job? Well, I think that's pretty much any job. I mean, somebody is controlling the way you do it, whether it be the laws that govern that industry or something.
Well, I think it's more, my interpretation is it's more procedural. Like, are they telling you, no, you have to do this way, versus like the law says you have to do X, Y, and Z. Like for tattooing, you have to wash your hands between changing gloves and all these things. Like, I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think they're talking about, like, for tattooing purposes, like the application of the tattoo. Like, you can't use this kind of machine. You can only use rotary machines, or you can only use coil machines. Those are the kind of things that I would imagine they're talking about. But again, it's arbitrary. And the person that's reading that shit, how do they know how we do things or what we expect and stuff,
Yeah. I I actually interviewed a guy, and we were talking about machines and stuff like that, and he was like, "Oh, well, I switched to rotaries because the last place I worked at, you had to use a rotary." And I was like, "What kind of
Oh,
shit is that?" And he was
yeah.
like, "Yeah, they didn't like the noise that coil machines make, so everybody
Wow.
used rotaries." And well, guess what, dude? You were an employee, not an independent contractor.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So maybe that was the only thing that they required. So
Mhm.
again, the arbitrary, you know, individual who's deciding this can just say, ah, well, the other stuff is good, but this is the only thing. Yeah, it's fine. We'll let it slide.
Yeah,
It's not clear,
yeah,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Years ago, before the whole IRS thing, and when everybody that worked for us was an independent contractor, the company offered we had dental insurance that was available because dental insurance is actually pretty reasonable to purchase, and that was a violation. You're not allowed to provide benefits for
Yeah.
independent contractors. That's number three on
Yeah.
the common law rules. Are there written contracts or employee type benefits, pension plan, insurance, vacation pay, etc.? The vacation pay is interesting because if you do offer paid vacation, that person's an employee, but you do not have to offer that to your employees.
Right. Right. So one is like an optional benefit,
Yeah.
but if you do it, they're an employee.
Yeah. And the same with health insurance. Like, depending on the size of your company, you don't have to provide health insurance. And that's a huge misconception. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be an employee because I get insurance. Well, we're not big enough to where we're required to offer you insurance. And we actually looked into offering people insurance, and it was so expensive that the staff wouldn't have participated.
Well, yeah. So that when you first said about the insurance thing, and we were talking about workers' comp insurance, not health insurance. When we did look into that, if you remember, we had to get a certain percentage of the employees to agree
Right.
to pay for
50%.
it.
Hmm.
Was it only 50?
Yeah. I
I
thought
thought
it
it
was
was
50.
higher than that, but
Oh,
whatever it was, we didn't even come close. When we
sure.
asked every employee, "Do you want health insurance that the company partially pays for?" And whatever the options were at that time that the payroll company gave us, we explained the, two best options,
Hmm.
and the response was very underwhelming. Like most people didn't value that enough to want to have to pay for it.
It was a
And
lot.
yeah,
It was a
well,
lot.
I mean, compared to what, right? Like if you go buy health insurance, it might be a lot more,
Yeah. I
you
mean, it was
know.
$400 a month.
Is that a lot? Because I pay a lot more than that for my wife and I. You
Well,
know?
it was $400 a month per individual. And that was the
Yeah.
best case scenario.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, especially if you're young and in
Yeah.
relatively good
Yeah.
health, chances of you using that. And there was like, I think you had to get up to $5,000 in bills before the insurance would kick in
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
It was
That's pretty standard now. That's what the health savings account that you're allowed to do that's tax deferred money. I think it's right about that number that you
yeah,
can get, and that's why they do it that way.
yeah, yeah. That whole thing's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, whatever. That's probably another episode. But I guess kind of what we were the whole purpose of this is to let people know that the lines between employee and independent contractor in the tattoo industry are not black and white.
No.
And my personal opinion, for the average tattooer, because of that, employee is probably the safer way to go.
Yeah, I
You know
agree.
what I mean?
I think it's the most beneficial way to go for a couple of reasons. Number one, the employees have more rights than independent contractors.
Yes.
So if you want more stability and security in your job,
Hmm.
employee is the way to go. Number two, once they raise the minimum standard deduction to 12,000 or whatever, it's gone up every year since then. So
Yeah.
it's probably closer to 13 at this point. Once they raise the standard minimum deduction, that almost eliminated the ability for tattooers to benefit from deducting the cost of being an independent contractor from the amount of money that they made. I mean, you have to make a shit ton of money and have a shit ton of deductions for it to pay off.
Yeah. One of the interesting comments I saw on the Tattoo Jobs post about W-2 versus 1099 is somebody said, so employee, they would never want to be an employee because what happens during the slow season? Do you just get laid off?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I saw that.
is the place you're working at getting rid of you during the slow season now? Like that I mean, that's fucking crazy. And then they were talking about getting paid minimum wage and could shop owners afford to pay people hourly during the slow season. Being an employee does not mean you get an hourly wage or
No.
that you even get minimum wage. You can be an employee and be straight commission. And a lot of businesses are like that. I know somebody that sold appliances for years and commission only.
Yep.
And they worked
No,
at Sears, you know what I mean?
And they were an employee.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of precedents for employees to make commission only, and the idea that they have to be paid a minimum wage every week is nonsense.
Right.
The way it works is it averaged out over a certain amount of time. They have a formula for doing it. And, you know, if some tattooer can't make minimum wage tattooing over the course of a year or 6 months or whatever it is, you probably aren't worth the shit.
Yeah. Or you're in a bad situation.
Right. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but like you should be able to make good money tattooing. If you love it, if you put your to it, if you take it seriously and you respect it, it'll take care of you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's my favorite Lyle Tuttle quote. If you take care of tattooing, tattooing will take care of you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Lyle was good at a good quote generator.
Yeah.
Minimum wage in the state of Florida is $22,880 annually.
Uh-huh.
Man, if you're tattooing and you're not making that, come see me for a job.
For sure, man. Like it's not a hard goal to hit.
Yeah.
For even a first year tattooer, you know.
Yeah. But now in Florida, minimum wage is $11. You know, other places it's closer to $7. It just kind of depends on where you're at. But the price of living is insane here.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything on this. I don't know how long we've been talking. I didn't pay much attention. That's it for this episode of I Love Tattooing. Sure hope you enjoyed it. Please check out our website, ilovetattooing.com, and leave us a comment or send us a suggestion if there's a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you want to give us some feedback. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. See you next time.